Hey there, I'm so glad that you could join me. Thanks for stopping by. This is the Generator podcast where we have long, casual conversations about the act of creation. Now, that could be the creation of art or business or even relationships. I'm your host, Matt Stagliano, and I love to have these types of conversations because not only do I get to know what my guests do, but I understand why they do it. So stick around, get inspired, get educated, get informed, and understand that no matter what you're creating, it's worth talking about. Thanks again for joining me. Now on with the show. Hey guys, it's Matt and welcome to Generator. I am going to bring in our guest immediately. This is Erica Manning. Erica, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How you doing? I got it. I think the last time I saw you in person was it Portrait Masters 2019? Is that the last time I literally saw you in person?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Way too long ago. So
what's been going on?
Next soon, but this is great. This is great.
Has anything happened in the past 3 years? No?
Yeah, it's been pretty dull. The world, just status quo.
You've been on a tear though. You're traveling everywhere. You were just in Spain, right?
Yes, I was. My daughter is teaching English as a second language there. So she taught this whole year, and I actually went to Barcelona in December of 21 to see her. And then my husband and I went just beginning of April to see her again. And it was amazing. Spain and Portugal, just picturesque. I have thousands and thousands of pictures that I have not had time to edit since I've been home. So they're just sitting on my hard drive waiting for a rainy day.
I've never been there. And, there's a lot of friends of ours that are in Italy right now. And my thought in going there, and I traveled Europe a lot in my former job. And one thing before I was a photographer that I loved about it was just all these little picturesque scenes, right? And alleyways and nooks and crannies and stairways and all that sort of stuff and old people hanging in windows.
Right.
And did you go over there and shoot anything with knowing that you're doing composite work? Did you go over there and shoot any plates? Like, oh, I'm going to get this background. I'm going to be able to use this. Were you that forethought, or were you like the tourist like I would be and just kind of like, oh, look, cats?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I didn't necessarily, I just knew it was beautiful. I mean, the history alone of that place is amazing. We're talking thousands and thousands of years versus a couple hundred here in the United States. So, just buildings and architecture and everything is just so incredibly beautiful and old and has character. So most of the time I was just taking pictures because I thought, it was a beautiful location. But as the time went on, I'm like, oh, I can see this as a background. I can see this as, so I do and have used a couple in composite since I've been back. So I guess I have edited some, but it's it's for my composite work. It wasn't for my personal use. So, but it was.
I'm going to wind up
awesome.
all of this out of you and stealing ideas. And I will not, we had a conversation recently about inspiration versus theft. And if I see something of yours, I'm absolutely 100% going to steal it. So we'll put that out there. That way you won't be surprised.
Go ahead.
Told you it's all premeditated. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, right? So I've watched your work, and for our listener out there who hasn't seen your work, you've done this amazing progression over the past couple of years from doing senior portraits, like pretty standard senior portraits, still at a high professional level, a good look, but you've progressed into this unbelievable, I almost want to say fantasy world, but I don't want to call it fantasy world. You're just elevating the portrait experience, right? And now these kids are becoming these adult, I almost said adult fantasy models, and that's so not what I meant.
Not good in the senior portrait realm. That's not what we want.
No. That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant in the least. Please, God. the character driven stories, right? Maybe that's it. You've become such an incredible storyteller with some of these images. Is that kind of where you always wanted to go with this, or has it been just as you've developed like these things, like I'm going to bring this girl to a gnarled tree in the forest and give her a crystal ball, and like how's that story, like how does that all develop?
Well, okay. So, I started out, and a lot of this was driven by, formerly Super Ice Education and, the Portrait Masters. And like you said, I started the accreditation process with them. And initially, I just was slapping in work that I normally did, and I did okay. But I started to catch the bug, if you will. I started to do well enough that I'm like, oh, I really want to get to that next level. I really want to, achieve a silver. I really want to, and, seeing the work that was done at that level, I wanted to be able to do that. So I simply just started to try to think of concepts that were just more like, a standard portrait of mine, at least, would do well, but it didn't have enough of the story behind it. And that's not to say senior portraits can't have that, but the ones that I was taking, they were pretty simple, pretty basic. And so, of course, everything that has happened over the last few years, sometimes real world kind of just has not been, all that great to begin with. So I started kind of taking my seniors and saying, okay, let's try something different. Trust me on this. Let's just do something a little out of the box. And in some cases, a lot out of the box, at least for high school seniors. And it just became fun. And it was a learning experience for me. It was a great experience for my model teams because it was different. It wasn't something that everybody else was doing in the area. And so we kind of fed off of each other. And then with each round, like I said, it's like an addiction, I'm like, ooh, I did well, but I'm going to try something new. I want to try something just a little bit different. And of course my skill level has gone up and up and up over the past few years too. So it's exciting to achieve the accolades and the awards, but honestly, just the learning that has happened over the last few years has been phenomenal. And it's just, it's what drives me. It's not the silver, gold, fellow level, which they're all great. Don't get me wrong, but it's, I have gone from here to here to here. And I just want to keep going on that. I don't ever want to stop learning. I don't ever want to stop growing. So that's been the evolution.
I picture, right? Because every time I see you posting something online, you're like, oh yeah, by the way, I just got this gold at WP. Oh yeah, just by the way, just like 75 golds at Portrait Masters. And by the way, and I look at it and I'm like, you must have this master calendar on your wall of where all the start and end dates for submission periods. And don't tell me that you don't, because I can almost guarantee that you do.
No, I pay attention, and I only play in a few realms right now, but I have my eye on others. So I don't want it to consume everything of who I am, because I have different, I have to make money, first of all. So right. A lot of that work is all, personal work. Or work with my model team. So it's not money making. And in fact, often it's money taking. Depending on how elaborate it is, but it is fulfilling. And it also brings me, like I said before, it brings my level up, and I'm, and people are aware that I am capable of doing these things. But I want to make sure that I'm, giving attention to all parts of my business. I'm not just ignoring, my bread and butter just so I can, enter these competitions all the time. But yes, I do have a calendar and try to plan for, certain entry times and that sort of thing. I find spring in particular an incredibly creative time of year. This just last month and this month have been very creative for me, partly because for senior portraits, It's a time when the previous class graduates and the new class is not quite ready to get their senior portraits. So I have my model team in place. I purposely picked them in January, so I am ready to go and have, a plan for this group of students. And so when, March, April, May hit, I am ready with some, really different, fun, exciting, creative things. And it's just a blast. I love this time of year. I love, love, love that that I've been able to create with them, especially over the last few months. It's been kind of a challenging time for me personally. So to be able to create, it's my therapy.
Yeah, it's been something that I've certainly seen in a lot of the work, and it's Erica Manning photo on Instagram, right? And
Mm-hmm.
Erica Manning photo, and all of the work that I've seen lately is so character driven, is so story driven. Do you save that for the model team, or do you approach like any senior that comes through? If you have enough planning time, do you
Right.
try to get fantastical with their images in addition to the ones that mom and dad are going to want to like, as well?
So,
Or is it mainly your senior team?
so it's definitely my senior team, and they apply to be a part of my team, knowing that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I do offer it to my seniors because the editing is different and the styling is different and that it's just a lot more involved. There is an additional charge to it. So it's a type of thing where if any senior comes to me and says, I want to do that, if we're not able to do it in their regular session, or it's going to require that extra time, I steer them in the direction of a creative session. It's an additional session, an additional fee. Just because while I love doing it, I also can't do it, in the realm of my normal senior session. So yeah, it's available to anyone who wants it. And of course, if a senior comes to me and they want to do something like that, they will have an idea. And so we will expand on that idea. Whereas my senior team, my model team, the ideas are mine. And, I'm the one who drives it all. And a lot of times, I'm just like, I send the information to my hair and makeup girl and say, please do this. And, they really don't have a say in it. Whereas my seniors, I want their session to reflect who they are, not who I think they should be. So, yeah, it's available, but it doesn't happen a lot. It has happened, but it doesn't happen a lot.
So I guess, I'm super curious as to the why. Why this, right? Why go the extra mile? Why go through all this elaborate storytelling for senior pictures, right? And I only say that because, as we strike the balance between artist and business person and creative and, all the things that we are, there's always a reason behind the stuff, right? And for me, I know when I'm shooting clients, it's about connection, less about props, less about like overt story and sets, and it's more about real depth and connection. That's my thing, right? And I like that. I know for you, you draw inspiration from so many places, and you're able to create this through a mastery of technique and, just endless inspiration and creativity. But the why is always fascinating to me, right? Why choose to do this for seniors when you can, probably get 8 or 10 more seniors a year if you didn't spend the time doing this, right? Where's the why for you in getting to this level of senior portraiture, or portraiture for that matter, like, the competition level for the everyday person? It's phenomenal. Why do you do that?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's a way to learn.
Yeah.
Everything that I learn through my creative work, I am usually able to apply in some modified way to my regular work. And I have seen my regular work get better and better and better by having these skills, by knowing how to do all these things. So that is one. The second thing is it sets me apart. Nobody that I know, especially in the senior portrait realm in my market, is doing anything like this. So I don't look like everybody else. And And I'm very happy about that. Some people may find it weird, but those are not my people. And I have always had a creative component to me, and just the standard senior portraits, it had gotten to the point where it was starting to suck the joy. It got so routine that the joy of it was being sucked away. And so by doing these creative things, it gives me that outlet. It allows me to just kind of free my mind and expand my horizons and explore, not on my client's dime, because they come to me wanting a specific thing, and if I'm out here exploring, then I'm not giving them what they want. So it allows me to explore, in a sense, in a creative way, and which gives me life and allows me to do what I do the rest of the year and do it creatively. It adds a little bit more creativity back into my regular sessions.
Yeah, and I wasn't lying when I said earlier that I'm unbelievably inspired by your work all the time. And I'm like, how can I steal this? And then I look at the work that you do and I'm like, I can't do that. I can take a person into the woods and I can take a picture. I can't do this stuff, right? And it's always inspiring to me. And I know that, one of the things that I see you doing a lot is you create a ton of content, right? Outside of editing pictures, there's reels and TikToks and lip syncs and behind the scenes, and I get exhausted watching you because it's an endless wellspring of energy, right? But my question in all of that, besides blowing smoke at you and just saying how wonderful you are, I can keep that going.
I appreciate that,
yeah. Do you watch the trends, right? So you had a shoot recently with one of your senior team members and it did like a whole Peaky Blinders feel to it, right?
Yeah.
Do you look for trends like that on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot? And does that inspire some of the sets? And is that strategic, or is it just kind of you're influenced by what you see and, hey, this would be fun to try? Or what kind of strategery is in there for you?
Okay. So as far as my themes for my sessions, I don't feel that I get my inspiration from social media for those. Inspiration comes from other areas, just, maybe what I enjoy. Sometimes it's what I can get my hands on at a thrift store or, a vintage store. If I see something and, I could do something with that. And then that kind of spurs other ideas. I had that happened with my peacock image years ago. I found an ugly costume, and then I did a whole series of bird images just because I found that one. So it's kind of weird how it progresses and moves and evolves. So inspiration for the images themselves, I think, come from those areas. Now I do, as far as social media, the beast, I feel like I have to feed the beast. So I create content, the reels and stuff like that. That's definitely, trend driven, and I even did a reel joking about the fact that I was doing research, by watching reels, my guilty pleasure of, mindless scrolling. But I get ideas and it helps me market, and it helps me, I don't know. I mean, not a single thing I put on social media is necessarily something that I'm like, I want this to go viral. I want everybody to see this, honestly, I'm just trying to communicate my art. I'm trying to communicate my personality, because I want clients to know that, I can be a decent person to work with. And, it communicates ideas. It communicates information. Like I did one when I was leaving to go out of town. I did a reel, about the Spanish I'd learned, or, you know what I mean? So it's just to kind of communicate. And I want to do it in an entertaining way. So people aren't just like, oh, she has a post about, she's going to be out of town. It's entertaining. And hopefully I'll engage more with my clients by doing that.
What do you do for fun with those? Like, do you find a sound and right? So not going to lip sync, not going to dance. No one needs to see that. I don't care how authentic you want to make me. Not dancing. I'm not doing it. And I say this on, Friday, June 10th, 2022, just in case someone is like, you're dancing. You're dancing.
Matt,
you weren't going to do it.
You and me, dude. We're going to do a dancing reel before you
the
know
Macarena.
it.
Like, way to go. Like, and all my credibility goes out the window. But I watch a lot of TikTok and Instagram reels, and I'm doom scrolling all the time, right? And one of the things that I have trouble with is, as a video maker, I want things to be so polished that I get caught up in the perfectionism of it, right? I'm like, and believe me, I totally get the authenticity, and people want to just watch people doing weird shit, right? And lip syncing and having fun, and it's an escape from reality and escape from all this stuff. And I think that's why it's so relatively addicting. But as someone that makes a lot of videos, the short form 7-second, 10-second, 15-second thing is almost lost on me, because there are so many ideas and so many sounds and so many ways that you can go that it never gets produced. So I say all that to say this. How do you do it? Do you schedule a day like Mondays from 10 to 12? I am going to do nothing but content creation? Or is it spur of the moment? Do you keep stuff on your phone late at night and then address it the next morning? Like, how do you figure out what to do, when to do it, how to put it out? Do you do 97 drafts of it? Where does the Erica, the perfectionist creative, who I see, worrying it over every pixel in an image, versus I'm gonna, lip sync to Megan the Stallion? Where does that all fly? How do you balance the perfectionism that I know you have, and just putting out you on TikTok or Instagram or whatnot?
Yes.
How does that battle go?
Yes to all of that. First of all, I am a perfectionist, especially when it comes to my images, and I will pore over them for hours. But that is work. That's my thing. That is, my major. Okay. So the reels and stuff like that, while they are important, their perfection is not important. The fact that they get out there is important. So I will, like you said, doom scroll. I'll see a sound, or I'll hear a sound, obviously, that I think, oh, I could use that in XYZ, and I'll save it. I probably save thousands of sounds that will never get used. I say, I'm like, oh, I could. And then then I will sit down once or twice a month and go through the sounds that I have and kind of come up with ideas that I could do with those sounds. And then I'll try, doesn't always work, I'll try to have some sort of calendar. Okay, I'm going to try to do this many this week with that sound. But it also depends on what else I have going on. Like right now, my reels are mostly showing the work that I have done. And so I somehow put those to either music or whatever, trying to get the timing, so it looks entertaining. But in, times when I'm not shooting a lot, I will do these, the voiceovers, which I find pretty easy. They're one of the easiest things I can do. And you're going to laugh, but I film those according to the days that I actually get ready. If it's an editing day and I have no makeup and I look like total dog crap, we will not be filming reels those days. But if I have a shoot and I'm meeting with clients and I actually put some makeup on, and I will film probably 2 or 3 and then have them in the hopper. So, on a low day or a week that I'm not, doing anything or putting any content reels in, I am putting one of these silly voiceovers. So I probably have at any given time 4 or 5 that are in the wings. Sometimes that doesn't always work well, because by the time I am thinking about posting it, that sound has been overplayed. And then I'm like, I don't want to post this anymore, because then it just seems like, redundant. So, it's a give and take, but it seems to work for me, at least well enough. So,
it's funny you talk about the sounds moving so quickly in the trends, right? I'm like, man, I've finally reached that age, right? Clearly, where I can bring back all the music that I grew up on, and no one will have ever heard it before, and it will be fresh and new. And I'm just, thinking about, I've got thousands of vinyl records down in one of my rooms, and I could just kind of dig through that for days and just flood TikTok with all sorts of new sounds. So, if you want to start a subscription service, that's fine. You can subscribe to me, and I'll just send you new sounds every week, and we'll see how that goes. What do you think?
I love it. It's a great idea.
Perfect. Yeah. I don't know. You're going to be my only customer, so I better make it worth it, I suppose. So, I've noticed not only do you shoot the seniors, but you have your self-portrait game is super strong, which is why you're here, right? Because what you put in the group was so astounding, and it's something that, as I've watched the work that you do from a personal standpoint for your seniors, and then really the self-portrait work, you expose so much of your heart and your inner thought and your pain and your happiness in all of the self-portraits. Do you find that there's a release there, or do you find that it's just a way to mark a moment in time? Do you do it because it's been a creative itch that you've had for a long time? Is it a mix of everything? I know that a lot of people struggle with self-portraits because, one, they don't like seeing themselves in front of a camera, which, get over it. Two, they don't feel, and this is more my thing, that you don't have a topic in which to, express yourself. So what's your process like for self-portraits, right? Is it just you feel that thing and you've got to create immediately? Or is it more like, all right, I've got this thought, I really want to think through this theme and work on all the elements? How quickly do you go through, some of that process?
Okay, backing way up. I have done self-portraits for years because it started out as a way to test lights. I have an ugly doll in my studio that I will, use as a lighting test, but it's creepy and it's ugly and it's really not a good representation of how the light actually falls on a human being. It's a doll. So I started to take pictures of myself, got the self timer, or the remote. And, then I found that they were good profile pictures. So that's how it started. Then I started to want to tell a little bit of my story, whether that be, my natural habitat or what I'm feeling inside, or, and it could be humorous, or it could be a little more deep, or it could be, just insightful and a way to tell my story. I mean, people can make assumptions about me, either based on the images I make, or I can help them formulate that opinion of me. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I started doing self-portraits that were a little more meaningful in one way or another. As far as the time it takes to create them or the creative process, it depends on what it is. Yeah. And, how, first of all, the technique that I am going to use, and then also, is there a lot of styling? Is it just, I did one with Norm, my cat, who seems to be,
I love Norm,
make his way into a lot of my images because he and I are two peas in a pod.
He goes up in everything.
He's a jerk. I'll just put that out there. He's a jerk, but I love him. Anyway, so I did a shoot with him because actually it was the time that Portrait Masters was having the self-portrait, that was a category. I'm like, I got this. I can do this. I like doing self-portraits. So literally 90% of the time in my life is spent in front of my computer editing with my cat by my side. So that was one of those, I want to show my natural habitat, and so, I brought a backdrop, put it behind me because it's a little busy behind my, where my computer is, set up my camera, used a speed light, had it under the hood of my screen, like shining at me, and took about 1,000 shots because Norm was all over the place. I even made a reel about that because, his butts to the camera. He's going and knocking over stuff. He's, but finally got one with him sitting next to me. And I'm like, boom, that's, there it is. There's my shot. So that was a good and humorous representation of who I am and how I spend my days. And subsequently, it was actually my #1 viewed reel ever. I'm convinced that the magic formula for reels is that you need to have some sort of furry animal. So that's, there you go.
Furries is a whole different Instagram. It's a whole different Instagram.
Right.
So, you said something in there that made me write a quick note, and I'd love to know, what assumptions did people make about you? You're just like, I'm going to cut them off at the pass so that they can't make the assumptions.
Right.
But that clearly indicates that assumptions have been made about you at one time or another. What were those assumptions?
One in particular is that a lot of times I prefer images of seniors that are a little more somber. Of course, I take ones where they're big smiles and, laughing and happy and, and I post some of those, but most of what I post is just more of that. I think it's timeless. I mean, when you look at historic images of people, they are not smiling. They have more of a serious look. And I think Richard Wood said, you can see into the souls of people when they're not smiling. And I feel that too. So I post a lot of images of not smiling seniors. Well, that can give people the impression that I'm serious and that I'm, so I wanted to show that I'm, I can be funny. I can be fun. I can laugh. I can laugh at myself. I can, so that is one assumption in particular that I wanted to debunk. I wanted to tell people, no, we have fun in our sessions. We, it's a good time. And yes, I do take pictures of people smiling. I prefer the ones where the people are not. So that is one thing.
High five to you, sister, because, I do the same thing that, anyone that comes into the studio, we have a laugh, we have a great time. And then I'll post a picture where they're really serious and they're looking dead into the lens. And they're like, you chose that one, huh? I'm like, yeah, there's so much there. Like, look at this. It's incredible. And they're like, but I like the smiling one. I'm like, buy the smiling one. I'm using this one. Like, I don't care.
That's exactly it. Yes.
But yeah, I think there's something there, because I was looking at, more of the stuff on your Instagram. And as, I was getting ready, I see your stuff all the time, but rarely do I ever look at an artist friend in aggregate. Right. Mm-hmm. I can almost pick out your work or Kat's work or Johnny Edwards' work or Leon's work and know that it's them. Right. And that's an amazing place to get to as an artist, is to have your style recognized. And I can like that with your stuff. And I think, with that, you do adhere to a little bit of that style and you create this style. As I'm looking at your images, the serious seniors, like you're putting these young adults into situations that are timeless and amazing, in these scenes that are incredible. The warehouse that you were in with all of those windows, and you're bringing people to these locations that are atypical, right? It's not just a studio. And now you're putting them in costumes that are atypical. I can understand why people would assume certain things, but you're creating something so different that I haven't seen, not only in the senior market, but in a lot of the adult portrait market. I'm not seeing this, right? Canvas backdrops are a thing, right? Golden wheat fields are a thing. Hyper blurred backgrounds are a thing for newborns, right? You're creating this mix of fantasy and Vanity Fair, and it's such a unique take on a lot of these typically standard images that I'm blown away by it. So that being said, I would never assume that you're like kind of this dark brooding person, because I've seen the lip sync. But the Point being, there's so much conscious choice in this styling, right? Was there some level of influence in that, in the stuff that you saw? Were there other photographers that you saw and got inspired by? Is it music that you're into? Is it a type of lighting? Is it being lazy and saying, I just want to use one speed light? Like for me, that's almost everything can be traced back to laziness. So for you, is there like one thing that you can always trace it back to? Is it the development of the story? Is it a certain look? Is it working with the personality? Where do you, where did you start to develop this style outside of wanting it to be different? Why that more serious, darker style versus bright and airy? What is it in you that gets drawn to that?
Okay, so I don't know if there's any one thing. That would be very difficult for me to pinpoint one thing. I learned early on that my style is not light and airy. I love it. I think it's beautiful and stunning. I just don't do it well, and I didn't like it more than the dark and moody. So I tended to develop what I knew I was able to do, and I feel like I have honed in on how to do it well. So I have gone that route. Do I do it? Sometimes. If that's what a client wants, that's what I'll do. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to look at my Instagram feed and it is going to be dark, lots of shadow, lots of drama, which I love. So I would say that's, and honestly, part of that is because the ceilings in my studio are black. It sounds ridiculous, but for me to get light and airy, I have to do a lot of stuff, change a lot of things to make that happen. And maybe it's me being lazy. I don't want to do that. I want it to be the way it is. So that might play a little bit into it, but I prefer it. I prefer it that way. So I feel like a little bit of both. I like it that way, but also that is the direction I have gone, and it's just easier to stay on that direction.
It's you, and it works for you. And like I said, I think it's so outstanding. And what I mean by that is not only good work, but it stands out from everything else that I see. Right. And there's this cinematic quality to it that is not necessarily just the lighting or the editing, but again, it's just always coming back to that story. So off of your photography a little bit, the storytelling aspects, knowing that you've been traveling, knowing that you have this wide variety of stuff that you pull from. You've had a very varied life, and it's wonderful. What are you doing this weekend? Are you going to see Jurassic Park or Top Gun? Like, where are you drawing your influence from for next year's senior team? Are you going to a Ren fair? Like, where do you get the the cinematic ideas? And is it just part of everyday life? You just kind of going around being like, I see this woman holding a crystal ball. That's going to be the next shoot. Or, I'm always curious because I feel so uncreative all the time. I'm just a background and a one light guy. And maybe I just need to get out of the house more, but I'm like, you're in front of your computer 90% of the time. I'm in front of my computer 90% of the time. Why can't I do what you do? Where do you get the storylines?
So for my style sessions with my senior team, I'll pick them, and then I will try to pick topics that may or may not interest them. And by that, I mean, for example, this year I had 5 or 6 different shoots that I did, and my seniors my team could pick 2 that they wanted to do most. So in the past, I picked kind of wacky out there, like the bird thing. I mean, what senior's going to be like, I want to be a bird. You know what I mean? So I do try to now create topics or themes that at least they can either relate to or enjoy. For example, I did style through the decades. Okay. And I put that out to my senior team, and I said, okay, pick any decade that you would want to do. If that's the session you want to do, you pick your decade. You tell me what decade you'd want to be photographed in. And I had 4 people interested. Fortunately, 4 different decades that fit them perfectly. Like, I couldn't even believe how it all came together. So for that particular session, I had their decades, I had what they looked like, I had their sizes and everything. So I knew, what I was looking for. And then I just start sourcing, going to vintage stores, going to flea markets, going to thrift stores, trying to, as inexpensively as possible, find things that would work. I also, because it's an overall theme of decades, I wanted at least one thing that would kind of tie them together. So I did a radio or some sort of music playing device. So I did a 1920s radio. I did a record player from the 50s. I did a 1970s kind of retro looking radio. And I did a boombox from the 80s. And so each scene had the radio, so you could get the feel of the different decades, but then of course their attire was different, the mood was different. Of course, 80s was way different than 70s and everything else. So it was just fun to have that unfold. That's not the idea I had in the beginning. My beginning idea was just fashion through the decades. It was only when I knew the people I was playing with and I knew the decades I was working with that the rest of it just started. And then, it involves like waking up at 3 a.m. and going, oh, yes, and writing it down and then expanding on that idea. So it's a process. It's not like I come up with the idea and then I, plan it and nail it. It evolves. It evolves over time. And that's generally speaking how any one of my sessions will happen.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And that's kind of that attention to detail, right? And being a kind of a music nerd and seeing the radios and the record players. And I was just like, where do you get that? Like, I don't have vintage shops like that where I am. So I literally honed in on that mid-century 70s, like console stereo that you had. And I was just like, I want that in my house.
Right.
I don't care about a photo shoot. I'm like, I want that thing myself. How many of the props that you buy do you hold on to like forever? Is there like another wing of your house that's just full of props?
So I'm coming up with an idea and I'm putting it out there right now. And I think it would work in any local market. Like I have so many props, way too many props. My studio is a house for props now because I'll get them and I'm like, oh, I could use that later. And maybe I will, maybe I won't. I don't know. Another thing I purchased for almost every one of those was a light, some sort of, vintage light that would go. So
light.
Yeah. So, I do hold on to them way longer than I should. But what I want to do is formulate a prop co-op with other local photographers. And so,
awesome idea.
Yeah, Facebook, I can rent it to other people, and so can anybody else who's a part of this co-op. They can rent their props or possibly sell them. So this is an idea that's percolating in the back of my head. Of course, I haven't had time to do anything because that would mean I'd have to photograph every
Get
single
off the TikTok, Erica. Get off the TikTok, all the time in the world.
It's true. It's so true. Yeah. So
you could
that's an idea. Yes, I have way too many props.
Have an auction site, Erica Bay, like eBay or something like that. And I'm telling you, be onto it. No, it's actually a really good idea, right? So the prop rental market, especially amongst photographers in certain genres, I think would work great in a local area, right? I'd be happy to lend out anything that I have for people, including the studio, for people to use if I think it'll go to use. There's so many things that I have. I'm a big furniture junkie, so my studio's full of chairs and ottomans and couches and stools and boxes and things like that. And I was looking at it the other day going, I don't have room for this shit anymore. It's just overwhelming. So, knowing Richard Wood has, an entire prop like closet wing of his house. I'm always curious as to what people do because I run out of space really quickly. And I'm never like, oh, let me just get one of these. I will get 7 of them because just in case, and it's so stupid.
Yeah.
So it's nice to know that one, I'm not alone in any of that. But do you find yourself, once I photograph something, it almost becomes like I'm never using that again?
Yes.
Why the hell am I holding on to it? So do you have like your macrame lamp, which I love, would go great in this house, by the way, if you want to get rid of it.
It's good to know.
But like a lamp like that, right? Unless that's part of your decor, is probably going to sit in a lump in a closet somewhere.
Which, yes.
Do you ever use it in a different way? Do you dye it? Do you spray paint it?
That is something that potentially, because there's some seniors who love the groovy 70s feel.
Right.
So that is potentially something I could use in a regular senior session if somebody were to come to me and say they wanted it. Yeah, if part of those things, like especially the things that I make, like if the peacock, for example, I made this huge, like almost shawl type thing.
That's amazing.
That made of peacock feathers. It takes up a lot of space I don't have. No one, as far as I know, will ever wear that again, but I feel a connection to it. I love that thing. So it's proudly displayed in my EMP closet room, and we'll see if it ever leaves there. I don't know. But
now, is that?
Go ahead.
Is that something that you would use? Because you just did a workshop, like a creative workshop. Yeah. Would you ever use something like that in any of your workshops and let people take images of something that you were basically known for creating it? Do you have any weird feelings about letting other people create with your stuff?
I have no problem with somebody else. And if that's what they wanted to do, then I definitely would. A lot of times, so when I create content for workshops, I like to create new ideas and then go with those mentees through that process so they can see how it happened. I guess I could take previous ideas too, but at least for the workshops that I've done, I want to create something new and fresh because it's content for me too. It's going on my website as well. So I don't necessarily want to redo something that I have done in the past.
Yeah, and that amazes me, right? I see a lot of people that they'll say, this is how I made the shot, and then they'll recreate it every single time. Right. I've been to workshops where, the instructor might be known for a style, is like, this is how I create it, but it's the same exact look. And what I find is, and this is where I have problems with workshops. I don't know how you feel about this. I don't like to be told, these are my settings. This is what you have to set your camera at. There's the model. We set up the lights, point and shoot. There's no application of problem solving in that at all.
Right.
So when you go about this stuff, especially when you're teaching, right? Because I would attend your workshop in a heartbeat. But it's that whole restraining order thing. The thing that I love about learning from people like you is the process. It's not, here's my settings, here's what I do. It's like, here's how I solve this problem of sourcing a prop or thinking about the light for this particular mood. So, in your workshops, are you very conscious of how people are approaching that? Or do you just kind of say, here's what I do, here's how I create these images? Or do you really force them to problem solve on their own and create something that's unique to them?
So, in my workshops, I'm not necessarily teaching them exactly how to replicate, a specific image, a specific pose. It's here are different lighting techniques that I use and the different scenarios that I would use them. Different moods, different lights create different moods. So, are you wanting something dark and moody? Are you wanting something bright? Are you wanting something serene and soft? Are you, what is it you're trying to photograph? What story are you telling? Storytelling. That's what we're doing here. What story are you telling? These are the lights that will tell you. Even in this last workshop that I did, we sat down to edit and I was talking about color grading. And I'm like, I would love to tell you that here, you hit this button and it is done. I'm like, I spend hours Like I'll do something and then I'll stare at it. I'll stare, I'll think, I'll shut the computer off, go away, come back, look at it again, tweak, make changes. I joke that it takes me forever to edit my images, but so much of that time is just staring at the screen, deciding if that's what I like or not. And so it is a process. It is not a, magic formula. And my hope in teaching that is that I'm able to help them work through their process. It doesn't necessarily have to be my process, but I think two different artists are going to arrive at very different results, even with the same process. You know what I'm saying? So it's not my goal to create a bunch of Erica Manning clones. I mean, first of all, that's, I love to see people.
The world would be better off.
Oh, you just go on, Matt. You just go on. No, I feel like, everybody has their own inner voice that I'm just trying to help them find that. And here are the techniques that I use. And there are certain skills and methods that people can learn, but it's how they apply them in their own style that is going to make the difference. So that's really what I try to teach in my workshops. It's not, you're going to do this and then create exactly what I just created, because what's the fun of that?
What's the fun of that? And I think, it's really interesting is I've kind of gone along in the photographic journey and try to learn from as many people as I can. Very few instructors that I've met, at least the good ones that stick with me, ask the question, why? Why are you doing that? They're like, all right, well, I want to take a picture of this. Well, why? Why are you? And it's not to trap anybody into an answer. It's just to understand thought process. And I think we've become so accustomed to things being easy and laid out and, tutorial after tutorial. You want to do it this way. You want to produce this light. Here's, an ebook on that. And it's very easy to get information, but I'm seeing less and less put into the aspect of thinking through the why of the choices that you're making. Right. And one of the things I see a lot because you and I are in a lot of the same groups. And one thing I see a lot is, what camera should I get? What backdrop should I get? What lighting should I get? Right. And it's a very good question to ask when you're just starting out. But I'm always that dick that comes across as like, why? Like, why do you need Pro Photo lights over Paul C. Buff? Why do you need Canon over Fuji or Nikon? Like, why? What's the reasoning? And if you can give me a good reason, great, I'm all on board. But I'm at least going to ask you, why? What is it that you're seeing? And if it's, I see person X over here creating work, and that's the camera and lens that they use, and I like that look, perfectly good answer.
Right.
But if you come at me with, I don't know, then all right, we're going to start there. Right. What is it that you're using now that doesn't work for you?
Right.
What's your why? Right. And there's not a lot of people that are doing that. And they might say, I've been able to choose my genre. Like, here's why I want to shoot seniors, or here's why I want to shoot newborns, or whatever. But there's very few people that are able to give me the whys of every choice that they're making, myself included. Half the time I'm just like, I don't know, I want to see what happens. Right. But the why for me is always one of the most important things, the intention behind it. So, as you interact with your students, have you found that more people are leaning towards, and I'm not saying this is specific to you, but more leaning towards just tell me how it's done? Or do you find a trend amongst newer photographers that they're really trying to understand the whys and are making choices specific to them? Is there something that we can do as a larger community to kind of address the whys over the hows?
That's a great question. I don't know. I feel like in my experience with the, you're talking in regards to mentees, correct? Or that people are teaching?
Anybody that you're talking to that's trying to progress in the craft, right? because we're shoveled so much information of how to do stuff.
Right.
Do this and you'll make $1 million. Do this and you'll sell stuff to clients, right? And no one's really asking the why.
Right.
And or they forget about that portion of it. Right. So I didn't know what trend you were seeing in the people that you talk to.
I think in the of the mentees that I've had, or the people that I am have closely worked with, I feel like they generally come in with that why mentality. Like there's something deeper there than just I want to learn skill XYZ. And maybe it's because of the type of, like, I'm doing creative mentoring. I'm not doing, this is how whatever. I'm doing something a little more creative. So a lot of times when people are coming into that, they have that creative mindset. I'm not teaching business classes, although I could, but I'm big on process and, but that's, for my business side of things, I'm big on process. So that handles itself. So I'm able to be creative. Yeah. And so long story short, I feel like, personally speaking, my work got so much better when I was able to be in touch with my why, and also started focusing on that storytelling aspect, whether it's my stories that I'm telling through the creative things that I do, or my clients' stories that they are telling through their senior portraits or whatever. Just images are better when it's not just a picture, there's something deeper to it. So I think that, the Artist Forge in general, I think has had a huge impact on the way I think about what I do. And, I hope that more and more people latch on to what they're teaching, because it is, like you said, so very different than all the tutorials that are out there. It teaches you how to think like an artist as opposed to, like a robot, which gives images so much more.
And I think, that's one of the things about being involved with the Artist Forge that I really like is that aspect of it, right? Is being non-traditional. There's so much room in this whole education landscape for everybody to teach everything. And if you and I taught a lighting workshop, right? And we're given one light and one camera, we would teach it totally differently. And the whys would be different. And so I think there's room for everybody to be out there and teaching. There's no right or wrong.
Right.
But what we found after doing so many just kind of morning clubhouse, hangout, chat, talk, we were like, we should probably do something about this, because the people that are showing up are asking more about thinking through issues rather than just give me the solution.
Right.
And it was kind of, we stumbled into it. I'd like to say that. I mean, I'm sure Nicole put more thought into it than that. Right. But it was just this formulation of, how do we get more people to ask these questions and have these conversations? And it's not to say that we have the answers. It's just, let's all talk to each other about, there's some shared experience here. Oh yeah, you have those days too. Perfect. Let's just kind of open the kimono and talk about all of that stuff.
Right.
So yeah, it's been awesome having you in there too, because you've been able to explain from your side, after you've been in business, 12 years?
This is my 12th year of business. Yeah.
12th year, yeah. So after 12 years, if you ain't learned something in 12 years, right? Then you probably should change your career. But I love when you come into the group, because you give such a depth of knowledge and experience that is so valuable to hear, even for those of us that have been doing this a while. To hear someone else go through that same struggle or deal with the same stuff is really, really important, and can often get lost in this sea of, here's how you do it, cookie cutter, Instagram influencer sort of education. And so that's why I'm always excited when you show up in the morning. I'm like, oh, Eric is here.
Well, I mean, I think we all want, I learned by doing a lot of things wrong,
Yeah.
and ideally we want the people that we are reaching and teaching, and it's kind of like your kids, you want that learning curve to be shorter. You want them to learn faster. So this industry as a whole is better. I feel like my experience has made me better if I'm able to share that and help somebody else in a small way so they don't have to make the same mistakes or, go down the paths that, I went and then change course. And I feel like everybody in that morning group has a lot of that to offer. There's a lot of experience, a lot of varied experience there that I just love. I love to listen. And a lot of times I am just listening, to
Editing with Norm on your lap.
I forever am learning. I don't ever want to stop learning. So yeah, it's been a great group for me too.
Where's Norm right now? I haven't seen him pass by.
He is probably sleeping somewhere. He sleeps majority of the day it's almost better. I mean, I don't want to wake the sleeping piece.
Does he react
all day long until we go to bed, and then he's sweet. But I just he's.
Have you found any triggers? Like, do you click a mouse and suddenly he's like, oh, I can go sit on her keyboard for the next 3 hours while she edits?
He is he's food motivated, particular sandwich meat and rotisserie chicken. And so I just open the baggie of sandwich meat and he flies in there. So normally when I need him to be in an image, I have to use sandwich meat or chicken or something like that to get him to even remotely do what I want him to do.
I'm food driven the same way. If I'm getting my portrait taken, you got to toss me chocolate covered pretzels, and I'll just snap to it. Totally get it. Norm and I are on the same wavelength. Yep. So what's next for you? Right. So your whole life has been about progress and progression forward and fighting through and building and getting better and expanding. And I mean, it's such a kind of an inspirational thing to watch. Here's someone that isn't just talking about it, they're actually walking the walk. And I've seen that in you for years. Everything that you said you would do, you are doing. So what's next? Where do you go? And am I going to see you in September in Arizona? Oh, fantastic. We're doing this. Okay.
But I haven't said too much about it and publicly, but yes, there's one small thing that I might have to attend to. So I'm kind of I'm not sure, but I should be, I have my ticket. I am real close to buying my airline ticket. So it should happen. But, as I mentioned before, the whole photographic competitions, I'm addicted. So I want to continue to enter, see as a general trend, my images do better. And that has happened over the past few years. My goal a couple of years ago was to get more silvers and reach that fellow level at the Portrait Masters. And I did earlier than expected. But it's a matter of, okay, this is my goal and I'm just going to do the work, and I'm not going to put any, unrealistic, I want to do it in 2 minutes. You know what I mean? I gave myself a couple years. I did it in a year. It's a combination of setting that goal, a high goal, but giving myself an achievable timeline to do it, and then doing the work. What's it going to take to do that? I have to learn as much as I possibly can. So the good news is I love learning. So I can learn all day long. And then if I have an idea and it's a little bit beyond my scope of what I'm able to do, I'm going to learn how to do it. And I'm going to make sure that I just get better, get better every single day. So continue on that track. It was my goal at the beginning of this year to get a gold image. Not expecting. I mean, I honestly, anytime I enter, I'm like, we'll see what happens. I got for the image that won a gold at WPE, it received a silver through the Portrait Masters. And I have learned also that I take every score with a grain of salt because different people see it differently. And I'm okay with that, So I entered it in WPE not knowing and just about fell over when I found out I got a gold.
Amazing.
So
That was the popular one, right?
where I'm like, well, maybe this isn't a mistake. Maybe I'm, I am getting better, maybe it's real. So, so I want to continue to do that. It will always be a goal of mine to get a gold through the Portrait Masters. It's the first accreditation process I went through. And I have told people in the past, I may be 80 before that happens. It's fine. I'm okay with that. It's not like 5 years from now, if I haven't achieved a gold through them, that I'll be mad. It just helps me to want to do better. And that's really the goal, is just to be better than I was yesterday. It's not to get that gold. It's not really to, to achieve any level of success, because I'm the same person having achieved a gold at WPE than I was 2 months ago. I am that same person. So I will continue to do that. I have learned that I love to teach. So I want to do more mentoring. I want to do more of that. But here's the problem I have. I love what I do, and I love the seniors that I work with, and I love being able to touch those seniors' lives and help them see themselves, as beautiful, as unique, as awesome, so I don't ever want to stop doing that. So it's a matter of, okay, where's the balance? What, do I have enough time to do these mentoring things? And can I still do what I currently do effectively and do both at the same time? So that's kind of it, process that I'm working through now. I'm creating content and creating ways, but to be honest, I haven't pushed the mentoring as much as, some people might. I'm kind of the mindset that I want things to happen organically and naturally. If I'm pushing so hard to have something done, maybe it's not meant to be. I will tell you that any mentoring client that I've gotten has been 100% organically, and I felt great about it, and they felt great about it. It was a wonderful experience. So that's kind of the path I am taking with that. So yeah,
it's amazing. And I don't think there's anyone better suited to be teaching people than you. I mean, you've been able to strike this balance between work and personal life and creative work and client work. And it's something that I've always admired about you, is your ability to balance life, right? At least from the outside, right? All I see is the duck swimming. I have no idea what the feet are doing underneath, right? So take that with a grain of salt, and I'm sure that, whatever I say, you will combat. But from the outside, it appears like there's a lot of balance there. With your goal setting, and one thing that I wanted to ask, do you reverse engineer that? Like, do you say, okay, I want to... You went from being a personal trainer to photographer, right? When you set that goal, said, all right, I'm going to be a photographer, did you reverse engineer that? When you enter competitions, do you say, all right, well, 2 years from now, in order for me to enter that and potentially win gold, I need to do X, Y, and Z? And is that how you build your timelines to take so much action?
Yes. I do reverse it. For example, when I said that I wanted to achieve fellow, right. Of course, there's a specific number of images that points that you need to have, and then there's a specific number of silvers that you need to have. So, so I knew what that number was. I knew that my goal was 2 years out. Mm-hmm. I figured out how many I would have to enter each round, and honestly, I doubled it. I doubled the amount that I would need in any round, because I figured, we're just going to see, first of all, it gives me more practice. Second of all, I just want to make sure that I have the points I need, and then we'll make sure that I get the silvers that I need. So that was kind of my mindset. And I think the round that I achieved the fellow level, I think I needed three more silvers, and I can't remember how many points. And so I entered as much as I could. I made sure that I had enough to, at the very least, have the point level that I needed, knowing that there was a possibility that I wouldn't get the silvers that I needed. But I did, So had I not done that math and figured out what I needed, then I would have had to wait another round to get just the points. And so yeah, there is some math to it, but there's also some level of being okay with where I am. Mm-hmm. Like, I hate the feeling of disappointment. I hate it. And I don't want to live that way. So, any given situation where I would go into a competition, I don't go in saying, I'm going to get this. Mm. And then if I don't, then, I don't want to live that way. I want it. If it doesn't happen, what can I learn? What can I learn from that experience? What can I change for next round? And I'm not going to be disappointed. It was an opportunity for me to learn, and I've become better. And I saw what I, potentially did wrong there. I'm going to change that for next round and see what happens. And I have just found it's just a more freeing way to live. I just don't want to be sad and add that that's driven by me, So why would I add that pressure onto myself? I don't want to do that. So
yeah, you've been able to remove a lot of ego from your work, right? And there's so many people that are tied to whatever validation for, I got X amount of points for this image, or it didn't get silver, or it didn't get gold, or, my friends didn't like it, or my family, like whatever. People tie so much of their ego to the work. And it's natural, but right. Being able to separate yourself from the outcome versus the journey, right? Which is where you really seem to be excelling, right? Is just, all right, well, the outcome is going to be what the outcome is. Yeah. I will be at my best at that point, whatever that is. Right. But it's this in-between time between now and then where the good stuff happens, right? It seems like you really excel in that area. And it just shows because the end product, the output, is so spectacular, right? It's a natural occurrence of all of that work. And I don't think people find enough pleasure in that journey to really see the value in it. Right. And so, yeah, it's just something I've always kind of seen. And anytime we fall into a conversation, I'm struck by how much you're constantly in that student mindset, constantly learning. And then it just, oh yeah, I'm just going to drop over here, this amazing image, and just, crush everybody else. I'm like, oh, thanks, Erica. I feel good about myself.
Oh, and it's not a competition.
I know.
You know what I mean? Period. It's not a competition between me and somebody else. It's not a competition with me to me. It's a journey. Just like you said, it's a journey. And, we should enjoy this journey we're on, Mm-hmm. So that's bottom line.
Well, this has been an awesome journey getting to talk to you. I'm so excited to be able to see you in a couple of months.
I know.
So let's at least try to figure that out. I haven't bought my plane tickets or booked my hotel or anything like that. That'll be like on the flight. I'll be booking my hotel. But yeah, it's been incredible to watch. And, I don't know if I've had the chance to kind of dig into your process like this before. So I just appreciate you just opening up about it. Where can everybody find you if they're like, this is the mentor that I have to have? Where's everybody going to find you?
All right. So my website is Erica Manning Photo, EricaManningPhoto.com. Same for my Instagram. And then I believe on Facebook, it's Erica Manning Photography. And those are the main ones that I focus on. So
gotcha. Thank you. Thanks for coming by today.
Thanks for having me. It's been such a pleasure. And I know we go back. We go way back. Way back to 2019. I know, right? But it's also been fun to watch your journey and be a part of the morning walk group to see the evolution of the direction you're going. I think you're made for this. I think you've got a golden voice and a golden personality. So I'm excited about this. And I'm thrilled that I got a whole hour plus to sit here and talk.
I like how you said I've got a face for radio there, but so diplomatically. That's so diplomatic. It's amazing. That is not what I said. Oh, you're so good at this. No, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. And thanks for just showing up every morning and giving of yourself. It's just something that I know we're all better off for it, for you just kind of showing up and sharing your experience. So thank you so much. And so I will see you in the room. And hopefully if I'm ever passing through Columbus, I'll stop by and just scream your name until I can find out where you live.
You need to give me the heads up if you're headed this way, because I'll treat you with style here in Columbus, Ohio.
You're just looking to get rid of stuff out of your prop closet is all you're trying to do.
You have this, you have this.
Yeah. I'll bring a U-Haul. All right, Erica, thanks. I will see you soon, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Bye.
Later. Bye.